hacking the internet of all the things at DerbyCon 6.0 Recharge.
Hello, welcome to Hak5. My name is Darren Kitchen.
My name is Shannon Morse.
It's your weekly dose of Technolist.
Welcome back to another amazing episode. Is that a Dave Kennedy for President sticker on your face?
Yes.
Of course it is.
Best candidate ever. Maybe it could be a write-in, right?
You gonna go political on the show now?
Well, everybody should register to vote.
Yes.
Even if you're not in the U.S., because you should probably register to vote in your nation for your thing.
Vote in the U.S. anyway. Yeah, help us, please!
Please help us. You know, I actually had, no joke, I had a dream. I'm not going to mention the candidate, but I had a dream that the other candidate, you know, the worst one, got elected, but through a computer malfunction, something got miscommunicated, and they ended up becoming the Prime Minister of Canada instead of the President of the United States.
That's horrible.
Yeah, and we're like, oh, sorry, glitch, it happens. You can take, I don't want to say him or her.
Insert name here.
You can take the candidate, and and then we ended up with Harper. So it was like a terrible dream. I don't know what happened. Yeah. So.
That's funny.
Oh well. Hey, we are back from DerbyCon. We've got more derpiness for you.
Yes, we do. Let's see. What are we doing today? Oh, so first off, we're talking to Tim MalcomVetter. So he did a bunch of interesting analysis on tokenization of credit cards. And then we are also talking to RenderMan. I'll let you explain what RenderMan's doing over there.
RenderMan is doing serious research about Internet of Things connected devices that happen to be sex toys. So we're going to find out all about that, and we will see you on the other side.
Be mature in the comments.
Hey guys, I'm back again here at DerbyCon in Louisville, Kentucky for 2016. Here at the convention, I'm here with Tim. Tim, hi, how are you doing?
Good to be here.
So Tim, I was really fascinated by your talk. I read about it in the synopsis in the guide, and I was like, cool. I used to work for a credit card processing company, so I'm really interested in the security that different companies can use whenever they're processing credit cards, obviously. So can you tell me a little bit about what your talk was?
Over the last few years, worked on testing some e-commerce applications that had credit card tokenization in them, which is a technique to try to take credit cards out of certain apps to keep them more safe. And so we came across a handful of some interesting things that you could do to attack them, kind of attack the seams, not really the crypto, but attack the seams of how these applications tie together, and you could get credit cards out of them potentially. So it's interesting stuff.
So why did you decide to start researching this in the first place?
Because it's kind of a weird thing that a lot of people think that if I deploy tokenization, then that's all I need to do. I check the box, I got that, and I don't have to worry about anything else. But it turns out there's a lot of stuff in the details that you really have to kind of dig into and understand.
So is tokenization something that obviously the company that is wanting to accept credit cards, they have to make sure that that is checkmarked, but is there any way that they can look into that themselves, or is it all just up to the company that gives them the acceptance of processing credit cards?
So this would be, so in my scenario, we're not really talking about payment gateways. We're talking more like a really large enterprise that wants to take their own credit cards and just put them in one spot on the network, right? So we're talking about all the things that they would do. So some of the attacks that we do and we demonstrate could carry over to a payment gateway, but that wasn't the intent, right? So the intent was definitely for like a DIY enterprise kind of tokenization thing. Gotcha. Right.
So what did you find whenever you looked into this tokenization?
So we found there's like 6 attacks we cover, or 6 scenarios. It could be everything from weird brute force scenarios you can come up, because a lot of times what happens is the payment server doesn't actually do any throttling, doesn't have authentication because it's actually tied, it's a separate stuff. So you're shopping on one site, you get your cart, you go to actually transition over momentarily, and you may not even notice it because a lot of times it's JavaScript little trickery magic that happens.
Yeah, I've seen that happen all the time, and sometimes you get lucky and a website makes the checkout cart look just like their webpage.
Right, so sometimes it's like you'll notice your address bar will change, there'll be a different domain name, and that's a hosted example. A lot of times big enterprises don't like that, they want to keep the branding and maintain it, so what'll happen is in the browser, your browser will actually grab the credit card number, send it off to another server, and that server will give you back a token, and then the JavaScript will then post that back to the payments, to the checkout site, right, to the actual commerce site, and say, oh, here's this token, and that's how you process that. So we're talking about that handoff is kind of weird. Yeah. Sometimes you can actually just hammer on the server that's actually giving where you give it a credit card, you get a token, and you can hammer on it in 50,000 guesses sometimes, and it's all you need on average in some scenarios in order to get a credit card out, which might seem like a lot, but it turns out it's really not, right? With automation, you can actually get that out pretty fast. So.
How fast were you able to make this happen?
Well, so you can actually generate all the potential credit card numbers in a matter of a few seconds with some Python code, but actually sending the transactions in really depends on latency, the application, and how much noise you're willing to make. Right, so if you want to do really targeted after one person, you might spread it out for hours. You might split the load out to like kind of Bitcoin mining kind of techniques, where you spread it out through a bunch of hosts in kind of a cloud scenario, or you could just be really noisy and just do it in a matter of a few minutes or an hour. Right.
So did you end up doing any kind of like man-in-the-middle attacks with this?
Oh no, we don't. No, but there are other scenarios like account takeovers. So like let's just say, for example. Yahoo just had this breach, right? So we don't have the data yet, but chances are, like all the other breaches, there'll be passwords that are dumped somewhere in some torrent, right? So when people get that, the bad guys like to go grab those and do account checking, where they go and say, hey, is this username and password valid on the site? And if it is, now I take it over. And if you have like a lot of websites like to have like a saved credit cards thing in their profile. So this is another scenario we talk about where you've got saved credit cards in there where I can actually see that number and say, hey, it's a Visa. These are the last four, based on the fact that it's a U.S. company and it's a Visa and blah blah blah. I know a lot about the prefix. And so I can actually guess those middle digits that are missing pretty quickly, and we can hammer on it. Yeah, there's interesting. I mean, it's not. Don't be too alarmed of it, because we're talking, potentially hundreds of thousands of hits per user per card that you want to steal, but it's potentially there. Another scenario that's kind of fun is same scenario, like we get the account takeover, but rather than just try to guess and get that same token back, what we can do is we actually can emulate the user actually adding a new credit card to their profile. And so let's say you had 3 saved credit cards. I go to add one based on I see the billing address, I see it's a Visa, and these are the last 4. I take a guess what those are. If I have 4 credit cards now, that means I missed, right? And it's kind of like playing like I sunk your battleship, right? So I'm going to sit here and I'm like, okay, it's a miss. Delete that one. Try again. Right. Miss. Okay, and eventually when I submit, yeah, exactly, right. So this just illustrates that it's really important for defenders to not just harden their application, but also to monitor, right? So you need to watch, and that means you have to have customized logs because your application will be unique, right? So everyone's a special snowflake. You need to know what your logs would look like in that scenario. So that's basically what it's about.
So if I'm implementing credit card processing on my side, or I'm working for a company as their security person, how would I, other than just doing logs, how else could I prevent this from happening on my own page?
So the spoiler I said in the very beginning of my talk was, if you take nothing else away, like be very, very careful about roll your own tokenization, right? Like don't do it yourself, right? If you can, use payment processing companies that are out there that are established, because they've kind of figured this stuff out, right? It's just like anything else in security. You don't want to roll your own. But if you're not going to do that and you want to dig into it, you obviously need to take, there's lots of scenarios to consider. I have a blog post about this out on Medium that you can go fetch, and it'll be on my Twitter and LinkedIn account and stuff. And then I'll publish the slides as well. So these are things you can look into, and there's certainly not the only things. I mean, this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but this is certainly like a good step in the right direction, right?
Is there any kind of payment card processor that you would recommend, or?
Oh, no comment. No comment whatsoever, right?
Awesome. Well, Tim, did I miss anything? Is there anything else you would like to share with our audience?
I think that's about it. There's more stuff. There's a couple other scenarios in the talk, so catch the video once they post it, and once Adrian gets it out online. So, and that's it. Hit me up on Twitter, say hi.
Sweet. Thank you so much. And where can people find you on the internet? I know you mentioned Twitter, of course.
Yeah, sure. So Twitter, at MalcomVetter, it's MalcomVetter, or you can hit me up on LinkedIn as well. I'm out there. Yep.
All right. Let's go drink all the booze and hack all the things.
Thanks a lot.
Here at DerbyCon 2016, it wouldn't be a hacker conference without drinking all the booze and hacking all the things, and an expert on both, in fact, is our good friend RenderMan.
Hello again.
It is awesome to see you. I hear that you are now an expert on both drinking all the booze and hacking all the things. The Internet of Things, scary buzzword.
Yes, well, one specific kind of thing, that would be the Internet of Dongs.
Dongs?
Yes, sex toys.
Oh, right, because sex toys are vulnerable to all sorts of exploits? Question mark? This is new territory for me. All my sex toys aren't Internet enabled.
Too, right? No.
Well, it's like, flip phones, and anyway.
So there's a whole new generation of connected devices. It's amazing the amount of technology they're putting into these things now. Bluetooth, there's apps on your phone. You can invite people remotely over the internet to control these things. It's kind of a brave new scary world, but what's really scary is when you start looking at the security of them and realize no one's ever actually done that. Nobody, this particular branch of the Internet of Things, no one's wanted to touch with a 10-foot pole.
Well, when I think about Internet of Things, I think about connected doorbells and security lock, door locks and webcams and things of that nature, right? I don't think about sex toys. I think that those first branch of kind of elements, your smoke detectors and things of that nature, security is probably a forethought. Is that what you're finding with the sex toys?
You'd think that security and privacy would be a forethought in these things. I mean, just like those other devices, your smoke detector, your door locks, stuff like that. What is it? It's a Bluetooth LE chipset. Pairs to your phone. There's an app, to unlock your doors, to do what you need to. That's all these are. Is you're using an app to send a command over Bluetooth to these devices to activate whatever. So they're pretty much the same as these other devices. And as we're finding with other Internet of Things devices, the security on them is kind of terrible.
Well, if they're both using the same underlying technology and it's just GPIO to, hit a relay, and in this case, instead of, opening a door, doing something else,
Activate the motor.
right? Then why wouldn't they both be about the same level of security? Is there not frameworks that they're all using that are based on best practices?
Well, you're assuming that they are, that they aren't the same level of security. Well, they are. It's terrible.
Just terrible across the board.
With these devices, it's, the Bluetooth, okay, we know those issues, it's short range, limited exposure there, but once you connect it to the app, now you have to worry about the application security, the back-end API and back-end servers that these things are talking to. How is this communication being facilitated over the internet? You now are 100 milliseconds away from 3 billion jackasses.
So give me an idea, give me an example of what you've found when you started going and researching this field.
So we've just started, this research, getting together interested parties and trying sponsorship and get things set up. But just tearing apart some of the apps, no one knows how to do SSL properly, even if they are doing SSL. Just all sorts of really, API keys left in there. Just all sorts of things that you should know better. But unfortunately, in that industry, and like we're finding in a lot of Internet of Things, they don't know any better. This is their first time they've done it. They basically are now adding connectivity to what has previously been an independent and manual device. So not understanding that they have to ask questions about security, is part of the problem. They just make it work.
I think it's an interesting example of the fact that every industry, as they approach new technologies, it's like having to reinvent the wheel, or even understand that there is a wheel to just be had off the shelf that has security built in, or even that security is a thing. So what kind of failures have you found across the board in any of these?
Well, complete lack of SSL is a big one. Asking for
just like requests over HTTP or other plain text protocols?
Yeah, just XMPP, no encryption or anything. If they are doing SSL, the vast majority they're using hostname identifier allow all, which basically will accept any certificate, even if it's not so man in the middle is really easy.
So that let's encrypt certificate that I just generated.
No, you just do a self-signed certificate. It doesn't even need to be. The other one is asking for ridiculous amounts of permissions. Like, why do I need to, this app that I'm using to control this Bluetooth device, need secure system settings change ability? Like, it's scary how much they're asking for. And it's just developers that don't know any better. They don't know that they have to turn off debug and restrict the permissions. It's just a case of, well, it worked. It was easier. Okay, we'll just ship that.
Right. Well, it got the job done, which meant that you could, go home at 5. Does that mean that perhaps installing one of those apps to control one of these sex toys might actually create a new attack surface on your device?
Quite possibly, because having if you get a malicious app on there that is looking for, say, blackmail material or other interesting information, knowing that these apps are out there. And depending on, a whole bunch of factors, could you figure out who, you're allowing to remote control this? Is that necessarily who, the public may think that you're allowing to? It may be someone else. There's lots of weird privacy implications with it, because people are really weird about sex. So, it's ripe for things like blackmail and extortion and what have you.
So what kind of feedback have you gotten from any of the vendors, or are you that far along in the research yet?
So just starting to reach out to vendors. Like I said, research has just kind of started, but the reached out to a couple of them already, and basically trying to get to the point where they're setting up a vulnerability disclosure program to where there's actually a path for researchers to report vulnerabilities, and that they'll take them seriously, research them, fix the problems. Like I said, this is an industry that has never had to deal with this before. This is totally new. They need a little bit of a guiding hand. So, people have sex, people masturbate. Get over it. Want them to do it safely. You don't want to have to worry about the fact that, if Alice and Bob, are in a relationship, and Alice invites Bob to control this vibrator remotely. Well, what happens if Eve hijacks that session? Alice still thinks it's Bob. She gave Bob permission, not Eve. Is that now a sex crime?
Oh, wow. Actually, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. But that brings new aspects to all sorts of things about men in the middle and getting backdoored and all of the other implicit jokes here.
The amount of euphemisms, double entendres, it just goes over my head now. I don't see it. The jokes write themselves.
Good luck in your next talk on that one.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many times they try to censor that. But that's why I use...
I think it is a prime example, though, of just how any industry, so you could just pick any facet of the world that now has to compete with all of the smart devices that we have and the expectation that everything must be connected. So it's like, let's connect the refrigerator and let's connect the connected home, that's been like touted for decades, right? And so, of course, everything will become connected. And this is just one, funny, cute example, right? But it's going to happen to every industry, and they're all going to have to learn. So what is the... what's the best path that we as security researchers can do to kind of pave the way for a more secure future for all devices, regardless of whether it's a vibrator or a doorbell?
I think researchers reaching out to vendors, providing that helping hand, pointing out to them, because yes, it's Internet of Things, but there's a bunch of discrete industries in there. Your refrigerator company, doesn't necessarily ever build doorbells, so they don't, those two don't talk to each other. They don't learn. You have to teach the same lesson over and over again to each industry. But when you spot, a problem, somebody doing something wrong, reach out to them. Sometimes they'll respond, sometimes they won't. In this particular case, there's a lot of you're doing what to what?
Exactly.
But it's a responsibility thing. There's a potential for things like harm. There's potential for embarrassment, extortion, etc. We have to do something. It's good civic mindedness. Being a good hacker of just not leaving these problems where once we know about them. It's what we do. We solve problems. So we see, pay attention to these things. Let them know, and
break it and make it better.
They need to understand that we're here to help. Yeah. We're not trying to extort you for money or things like that. It's just you don't want to see anybody hurt. Be it a doorbell, refrigerator. I really don't want to see a vibrator like sending spam. Participating in DDoS or something. But there's a very real chance of something like that happening in the future. That's just mind-boggling.
It's crazy to think that we live in a world where you may potentially need to firmware update your dong.
Yeah, it's just a lot of things you never thought. Doing this research has been, for me, I'm very open-minded and stuff. Even for me, it's weird. Some of the stuff you find, when you're going through an application and there's a function, called get orgasm. Who gets to deal with that sort of stuff? This is...
We are going into a brave new world of robots and everything else. So it's just going to get weirder. So you might as well, get it secure and get that mindset of security from the forefront. Where can people find more info on what you do and the research in case they're also doing similar stuff and want to collaborate and all of that?
I set up a website for this project. It's the internetofdawn.gs. So Internet of Dongs.
Nice. All right, RenderMan, it's a pleasure as always. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing your research evolve. And for all things DerbyCon, keep staying tuned at Hak5. It's time to take a moment to thank our friends over at domain.com. And if you've been watching Hak5 for a while, you know that we love domain.com. Whenever we have these awesome ideas, when we want to register a domain, that's where we go. And over the summer, we've been making all sorts of cool things, thinking about the amazing possibilities with this new top-level domain, .club. When domain.com told me about this, I was just hooked because, you know, it's a really cool top-level domain and we wanted to celebrate by featuring your club ideas, and we did just that. We got an awesome tweet here from Paulo Dev who says, "Hi Hak5, .club idea, a recipe-style IT tutorials. Nobody bothers reading blurbs nowadays, it's all TLDR. Thanks domain.com for supporting, and thank you, Paulo. We are sending you an awesome .club, and let me tell you, these are perfect. They are universally and globally understood, and not just here in the US. So if you're building a new business or naming your startup, it is perfect. I mean, really anything like a business or an idea could be a .club, and it's the internet we're talking about. It's all about community and collaboration. So .club is really the ultimate social domain. So when you're thinking about building your next website, a .club is awesome. Get yours over at domain.com/club. Register those. They are super affordable. Let me tell you, there are still literally thousands available. And just make sure you use that coupon code HAK5. That saves you 20% and lets our friends over at domain.com know who sent you. Matter of fact, go ahead and tweet at domain.com and say, "Hey, thanks for supporting Hak5 all these years. And really appreciate everybody sending in those awesome ideas. Thank you. And when you think domain names, think domain.com." But then the craziest thing was, like, Angela Merkel was the vice president. And oh, we're back. Another episode of Hak5, wrapping up the show here. It's fantastic to be joining you guys over the internet once again. It turns out I'm going to be in Vienna, Austria, teaching with Robin Wood and Seb Kinna.
Yes.
All about the Wi-Fi Pineapple, the Land Turtle, and the USB Rubber Ducky. Those dates are November, I want to say around November 8th. In Vienna, Austria. It's at DeepSec. Find the links over at hak5.org to sign up for that workshop, as I will have to, I guess, vote absentee.
Yeah, you will.
I won't be in the country when we find out who wins.
You might just want to stay in Vienna.
I don't know if you can apply for like political asylum while you're in Europe at that time, but anyway.
You find out who your new president is, and you're just like, nope,
I just want
not coming back.
Men with the shiny shoes know that they are just the sweetest, just the sweetest. I love my government.
Oh, you're so funny.
Hey guys. Guess what?
We have a Technolist Photo of the Week this week. Every week we are going to be giving away something from the Hack Shop. That's hakshop.com if you want to support us there. And you guys can send over your Technolist photos. We'll choose the best one, our favorite, as long as you use the hashtag Hak5. To be honest though, this one didn't have the hashtag Hak5, but I loved it so very much.
Really?
Yeah.
We're spoiling it.
But I
really
liked it
Wins
though.
Anyway. Oh, what?
I know. So this is from Kim Thompson. Arject. No kitty. No can has Wi-Fi Pineapple book.
Aww.
It's so I want to cuddle it.
That is awesome. And seeing as you most likely already have a Wi-Fi Pineapple, might I entice you with a Land Turtle that we were sending you for free from our hack shop. Get all sorts of fun man in the middle, now wired instead of wireless. Check that out.
Cat in the middle. Train your kitty to plug it into Ethernet.
Well, how about Cat5 port on the Land Turtle?
Nice.
It's RJ45
oh my gosh.
jokes.
Well, we love your cat, so thanks for sending in your picture. And use that hashtag in the future.
Yes, epically nerdy.
Epically nerdy.
And it's, you know, I feel like that is preying on the social engineering, human vulnerability of cute animals.
Yes.
Because, as we know, we're all susceptible to that. Don't try to pretend you're not you are.
It's true. I really like cats.
Yes, indeed. You know what else I like? I like finding out about all of the awesome workshops and other fun stuff that we have going over at hak5.org, and then I scroll down and I see the pictures of all the, hey, we're sending that out. We're pictures of the snubs, and you can see all her social links, and then you can be like, I like cats too, here's a picture of my cat.
Yeah,
which you need to do, and then you subscribe to all the podcasts. I've done this before, I swear.
I think we're done.
We are so done. Yes.
Let's go grab a beer.
Right, we've worked every weekend for the last 3 weeks running.
We have.
We're
tired.
This is why I'm wearing the same shirt from last week. Hey, support the show directly, hakshop.com, hak5.org for all the goodies. You can leave comments below or email us directly, feedback at hak5.org. Something about micro machines. I'm Darren Kitchen.
I'm Shannon Morse.
Trust your technolist.
Smells interesting.
What are you doing? It's not a scratch and sniff.
It smells odd though. Like you dancing.
There's no clips of me
the
dancing.
party.
There are none of those.
You want to bet?
What?